call to order the Rosemount Planning Commission for Tuesday, July 28th, 2026. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, let's get started with the meeting. Thank you all for joining. Are there any additions to tonight's agenda?
There are no additions to the agenda this evening, Mr. Chair.
Excellent. Thank you, Anthony. Next item on the agenda is audience input. This is a time where the audience can come forward for any topics that are not on the agenda if you want to address the commission. Are there any topics for the audience input? Very good. Thank you. All right. Next up is the consent agenda. There's only one item on the consent agenda tonight. It is the minutes of the June 23rd, 2026 regular meeting. Are there any questions or additions or changes to the minutes from the meeting? If not, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
It is approved by moved by Commissioner Reed, seconded by Commissioner Ellis. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Next up on the agenda is old business. Are there any topics for old business tonight? All right, very good. We're going to move right along then. Public hearings. First item on the public hearings is the request submitted by Kamal Omar and APRO Development Incorporated for an approval of a site plan review to develop an automotive repair shop and office. Liz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. So this is a site plan review for a property on 158th Circle West for a major automotive repair business with office space in the Biscayne Business Park. In 2025, a similar project was approved, including the two parcels that we're discussing tonight, as well as the parcel just to the west. The applicant decided to make some changes to the layout, so that's why we're requiring the new review. The site is designated for business park land use and zoned B2 PUD employment planned unit development. Major automotive repair is a conditional use in B2. That's the definition right there for you. The property was approved for a conditional use permit back in 2025, and staff found that the development still meets the standards for the conditional use permit and determined the previously approved conditional use permit will still be applicable for this project. And the plan generally meets the requirements of the city code. So here's the site location, just near the intersection of Biscayne and County Road 46. And then here it is in a little better context. So as I mentioned previously, the earlier approved project included this parcel, but now it's just these two. The applicant has provided a site plan which meets the general standards for the zoning ordinance. The office space will be over here on the east side, with the west side including the service space for the repair shop. The one thing is the applicant didn't provide a location for trash enclosures, so that has been listed as a condition of approval. Here is a table showing the zoning standards. It does meet all the setback requirements and is below the maximum lot coverage. The plan meets the required parking. 46 spaces are required, 46 spaces were provided. And then down here we just have the breakdown of the types of vehicles for parking. And then access will be on that eastern side of the site where there's the existing shared driveway. So the applicant provided a landscape plan that meets city requirements for trees and foundation plantings. Staff did not find that the applicant met the minimum 5% parking lot landscaping, and we determined that it is possible to meet the standard if they do future expansion, and staff is going to note that it is difficult to include peninsulas in this western side of the parking lot just because of maneuvering and the movement of those bigger tractors and semi-trailers. The applicant provided color elevations. The provided elevations are similar to the KDP project, just to the northeast. However, the KDP project was approved prior to a zoning code update in 2024, which changed the requirement to have 40% of the materials other than 40% of the materials be something other than finished steel or aluminum, and that requirement has also been added as a condition of approval. So for site lighting, they provided a lighting plan, contains pole-mounted lights at 25 feet tall and wall-mounted lights at 19 feet. The maximum height is 30 feet, so they're both good there. And the applicant's photometric study shows compliance with the code standard. So there are two options in front of the Planning Commission tonight, an approval with conditions or the option to continue the item to the Planning Commission meeting on August 25th. I believe the applicant is here and I can also answer questions.
Are there any questions from commissioners?
I got one. So the entry, was it previously on the previous site plan, was the entry always on the, like not on the cul-de-sac area?
Yeah, so I believe the previous plan had an entrance on this side up in the cul-de-sac, but just because they are only using these two sites, it's going to be on that shared driveway.
Okay.
Commissioner Biedner, were you asking about access into the site or an
Yeah.
entrance into the building? Okay.
Into the site, yep.
Liz, a couple questions. Because I know one of the options here was to continue because there's some missing elements. The landscape plan was not complete. Was the exterior elevations, is that complete from your perspective?
Since the standards were updated in the 2024 zoning code, we are including the condition of approval that 40% of the materials be made up of that approved list.
Okay. And then the trash enclosure, I can ask the applicant about that one, right? Because that hasn't been planned out yet.
Correct.
Okay. Are there any more questions for from the commissioners? Otherwise, we'll, okay. All right, at this time then, we'll open up the public hearing. And if we can ask the applicant to come up first, that'd be great.
Hello, I'm Nadia Ritter with APRO Development. We're representing Kamal and Mustafa's KCI group, who are the owners for this project. So for the landscape plan, to get that question kind of out of the way, we plan to add around the current parking areas for the time being, ideally where we can put them in a way that they won't have to be removed once we do the future expansion. So spots that would be a future island and kind of around the auto parking areas in that sense.
Can we bring up that layout that shows the current landscape plan? Thanks, Liz. Okay, so on this diagram, you're looking at doing it where? Sorry.
If you can see the cursor, we plan to have it kind of in the areas that, in the initial first expansion won't be moved or disturbed. So those could go kind of along here, along this auto parking area, and then also right here where we're going to have a future island. Same thing along here, because there will be a future island once this expansion occurs to the west.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. For the second one with the exterior elevations, so all of the dark brown panels that we were showing, those will be changed to be an approved material from the list. That does meet the 40% at minimum. It gets to 41% on the most restrictive elevation. At most, it gets to be about 48%. So we would have that. With that, we would like to request that we could go back to the initial exterior elevations that were submitted for this application that showed a gabled roof line. As it's currently shown with the metal panels, adding whether it's brick or stone, masonry of some form along those spots, it will create kind of a weather challenge that could cause issues in the future for the metal building. I believe the previous application that was approved back in 2025 did also have that gabled roof. So we would just request that we could go back to that to include the 40% there. Just make sure there's no future issues for the owners there with weather.
Now would the plan be to update those plans prior to the commission, I'm sorry, the council meeting for that approval?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Chair, so because this is a site plan, Site plan is approved solely by the planning commission.
Okay. All right. So, okay. Thank you.
Additionally, we would like to just ask if fiber cement panels would at all fall underneath that approved list. We want to give their general contractor, I guess, as much options as possible as they figure out the best solution to the approved materials. I know it's not listed explicitly, but it does say or best within the code, so we weren't sure if that could potentially fall under it. It does in quite a few other communities, so we figured we might as well ask while we're here.
I'll take note of that, and then we'll come back to that.
Okay, sounds good. And then the trash enclosure. The current plan is to have the trash held within the building, and it would be rolled out on collection days. So there is some spare space on the floor plan where the trash receptacle could sit, and then they would just cart it out on those collection days. And when the building expands, it would still be held within inside the building.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Other questions from the commissioners?
I've got one. So did it look like this has a fence that goes completely around it? Is that right?
Yes.
Do we have details on what that would look like? And
It is a chain link fence. It is below. We don't have it fully detailed out at the moment, but it would be below. I want to say it's the 6 feet is the maximum there, so we would remain under that.
okay.
Other questions?
Nope.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there other questions from the audience today? All right, then I'll make a movement to close the public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Reed, seconded by Commissioner Bougie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, public hearing is closed. So Liz, given that this site plan review is not, we're really the last stop here, and the trash enclosure information is not complete. Well, actually, let me back up. I haven't heard of a plan that has the trash kept inside and rolled out. Are there any concerns with that from a zoning?
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to provide some context. The KDP site did receive approval to have their trash located within the building as part of their approval. They did ultimately decide to do an outdoor trash enclosure because it is multiple tenants over there, but it is allowed by the code to have trash stored inside a building. And
Okay.
I guess there is some benefit to that too, because it's even more protected from the elements.
Got it. Okay, very good. So that was one. The other one was the fiber panels that they asked about. Do we have a response on that?
That's something that we've seen in other buildings. I think that staff would be comfortable with considering that as an approved material. Specifically, the code says no more than 60% finished steel or aluminum. And so swapping that out with another durable material would be in line with the ordinance as well. And then, sorry, one thing else to note with regards to the question about fencing, that is something that, while often is included in a site plan, is an administrative approval as well. So we would be reviewing that through a fence permit process.
Okay. Honestly, I'm not sure I'm comfortable being this is the last stop for the site plan review, approving it without it moving forward. And that I would suggest that we do a continuance of this, review the more final plans at our next meeting, include that as part of our old business section. Are there any other comments from commissioners?
I'd be more comfortable with that as well. I feel like there's too many open checkbox items that I feel like we should handle that, rather than having it approved subject to these relatively, more significant than sometimes we have things that are, in my mind, less significant that we're approving them subject to. I think this would be one that, from my opinion, would be better off continued.
I'm going to disagree with that. I'll disagree. I mean, I'm going to say no, nay. Just because the conditions are listed out here, 1 through 9, and those basically the applicant has to meet the conditions that were outlined in 1 through 10, actually. So I'm comfortable with our planning group knowing that they're not going to approve something if it's not going to have the conditions met. So I'm comfortable with having it move forward.
I am as well.
Okay.
I don't think there's anything in here that I feel wouldn't be covered by staff and be followed up on and couldn't be covered adequately through the next steps.
I would be comfortable moving forward today as well.
Yeah, same here. I'm comfortable moving forward today.
Very good. And in that case, are there any other questions or comments? Would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. Motion to approve the site plan for the automotive repair business at 2510 and 2520 158th Circle West, subject to the following conditions 1 through 10.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Rivera, seconded by Commissioner Biedner. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. All right, motion passes. We have Commissioners Ellis and Reed saying nay, but Commissioners Arnob, Biedner, Buji, and Rivera approving. All right, so this will go to City Council.
Mr. Chair, this is the final
to
decision.
Council. All right, very good. Thank you. All right. Next up, we have the Northwind Testing LLC. Let's see if I've got it here. Request by Northwind Test for approval of preliminary and final plats, planned unit development, master development plan, and final site and building plan to construct the first phase of the Minnesota Aerospace Complex.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. This is a request, as you said, for three specific requests related to plat approval, planned unit development, master development plan, and then the final site and building plan for this. The site itself had been initially subdivided from the greater Umore Park development in 2025. At that time, it was rezoned from the ag to business park, or B2 employment, which is consistent with the business park land use designation that has been on the site historically for a number of years now. So the planned unit development, master development plan request does come with a few deviations from the code being requested by the applicant. Also note that a planned unit development would be required to allow for multiple principal structures on a single parcel. So at any rate, this would be a PUD request. The applicant is asking for flexibility related to building height, parking, fencing, landscaping, lighting, and architectural standards, and I will go through those in more detail here as we move through the presentation. Also, as before I finish, the applicant does have a number of representatives here who are ready and willing to speak, talk about Northwind Test, talk about what the company does, and also details related to operations and potential timing and additional technical details that staff is unable to address. So the site itself is comprised of 60 acres approximately. It's located about a half-mile south of County Road 42, immediately west of Blaine Avenue, and adjacent to Meta's data center project in that eastern part of town, just east of DCTC. You can see the site itself contains what's shown on this site map as 152nd Street East. That is not an official street. That's a private road owned by the University of Minnesota. It is not, nor has it been designed to city standards. That will be removed as part of the project, as well as those 3 buildings there that have already been removed as part of the remediation of the site, which I'll also touch on a little further. There will be a new street constructed as part of this along the northern side of the project. You can see here the site's land use designation as business park. That's that lavender color there, and the site itself, its location is indicated with that star. And then the zoning for the site, B2 employment, that's that purplish color there. Again, the star indicating the site itself, and the general alignment of that future road on the north side there. So this is the overall concept plan. This is what the applicant is envisioning for the full build out. Before the Planning Commission tonight is just the first phase, which is in this kind of northeastern portion of the site. I've got more detailed plans here going forward, but just want to give the Planning Commission an idea of what they can expect this project to be built out as. So in addition to building 1 and 2, which are the principal testing facilities in there, there is accessory buildings and then mechanical buildings as well that support the work that goes on in those principal buildings 1 and 2. There's some mechanical equipment shown here on the south, as well as other accessory buildings. These are all concepts. Ultimately, whatever does come forward in subsequent phases beyond phase 1 will come back to the Planning Commission for review through the site plan review process. Also note that Xcel Energy will be constructing a substation in the northeast portion of the site. That's similar to what the Meta site has over there, making use of those transmission lines that are being run down there. A separate site plan review for that essential service facility would be required prior to its construction. And then lastly, I want to note the engineering building here in the central area. This would be a kind of a collaborative effort between the University of Minnesota and Northwind to allow for educational opportunities on that site as part of the research and testing. The applicant is envisioning a campus-style development with the buildings 1 and 2 and the engineering building really sharing a similar architectural feel with a complementary mix of materials and then a central kind of plaza area, what you would kind of picture for a tech campus in that area. Again, this is all concept. Final plans for a lot of those will be presented to the Planning Commission as those come forward. And then also note that there are future expansion areas in the west, southwest, and south side of the site, but how those would develop would remain to be seen, but again, would require formal review through a public process. So the first part of the request is the plat approval. The applicant has submitted applications for preliminary and final plat approval. The plat for the site, Northwind Edition, would be creating 3 parcels, 2 buildable lots, and then 1 larger outlot for the future phases of development. The 2 buildable lots contain the substation as well as phase 1 of the development. There's also right-of-way being dedicated for the new 151st Street. The city's engineer does note that drainage and utility easements are not shown on the plat, but will continue working with the applicant to ensure that those are placed appropriately over any publicly maintained stormwater. With regards to the actual zoning code standards for the B2 employment district, the minimum lot area is 1 acre and the minimum lot width is 120 feet. You can see on the table before you that the proposed plat does meet and exceed those standards for parcels within the B2 employment district. So this is the preliminary plat to give a general layout of the site showing the right-of-way as well as the lot areas. The actual plat itself here showing the parcels that would be created. Lot 1, block 1, and then lot 1, block 2 are the 2 buildable lots. Outlot A would be reserved for future phases, and the boundaries of future parcels would be reviewed and approved through the platting process going forward. And again, 151st Street is shown there as future right-of-way. So with regards to the Planned Unit Development Master Development Plan, I'll go through the requested deviations or flexibility from the code. In speaking with the applicant, they did indicate that the second phase would be very similar to the first phase with regards to building height and materials. They are requesting maximum building height of up to 120 feet, and then the occupiable building height would not exceed 75 feet. The 120 feet would be more for mechanical exhaust towers from the building, and I can certainly defer to the applicant on their specific requests for these. Off-street parking requirements, the applicant is just asking that the parking be based on the actual employment and usage of the site due to the highly specialized nature of the development. I just want to point out on this concept plan here that the applicant is anticipating additional parking in some of these subsequent phases. Typically, we require parking standards because someone might buy or have a building. It's built with a certain level of parking, and then someone else might come in and it's a different use, then has a lot higher need of parking. The reality is that's probably not going to be the case for this site. This is something that is super specialized and not something that would be sold for a different use that would have substantially different parking needs. So staff is staff is supportive of the applicant's request to reduce to base the parking needs on their own anticipated, or parking requirement based on their own anticipated needs. They do show plans that exceed what they anticipate needing for this first phase of development, which I'll get into in the future. The third item that is being asked deviation from the code on is regarding the fencing standards. This is similar to what Meta had requested for security fencing, that it would exceed 8 feet and there would be some enhanced security features. From an aesthetic or visual standpoint, from the right-of-way, the fencing would be located behind any screening trees. Impacts on adjacent properties is pretty minimal in that regard. So staff is supportive of that and also understanding this unique security requirements of this project. Landscaping, screening, and buffering standards. The applicant's plans show a significant use of coniferous trees that exceed 50%, which is what the code allows for, and that's simply for screening. Staff is supportive of that. Any other trees in the boulevards along the new 151st Street are deciduous. There's a mix of deciduous and ornamental trees throughout the site. It's just the heavy plantings along the perimeter result in a percentage of coniferous that exceeds that 50%. The next item would be related to lighting standards. The applicant has expressed concern that they may exceed 1 lumen at their property line. Staff would note that the maximum level of illumination is measured at adjacent property lines. So when there's a right-of-way separating two properties, it might be 1 lumen or 1.2 lumens on the subject properties line, but once you get past that right-of-way, it's down below that. So staff is supportive of the request and would work with the applicant just to verify what that level of illumination would actually be on the other side of the road. And really the lighting is located along the roadways in the property itself. Architectural standards. Flexibility in the massing and articulation requirements based on the shape of the building and the materials used. Typically this is a requirement where if there's a length of wall that is greater than 100 feet in length, vertical elements are required to break up that wall, either different textures of tip-up panels, different colors, things like that. The applicant's plans and the shapes of the buildings show materials being used that would create visual interest. It would break up the mass of the building. They're just pretty large structures. And again, the screening provided and required by the applicant minimizes any sort of impacts that a deviation from that standard would create. So staff is supportive of that as well. So here's the site plan. This is the overall site plan showing the first phase in context of the rest of the site. You can see here on the north, this would be the 151st Street. There's a temporary cul-de-sac here for turning around. Main access into the site in this first phase will come from this location, but as you may recall from that concept plan, ultimately the main access into the site will be from this drive lane here. The problem or the reason why it's not being proposed immediately is because the final location and design of that engineering building has not yet been completed. Once that's done, that will basically determine where that entry point is here. So for the first phase, this will be the access point. Ultimately, at the full build out, there will be a ring road around the entire site that goes back and forth. But these roadways shown in phase one, these are permanent and these are what would remain. So zooming in a little bit here, you can see there's 3 primary structures shown in this first phase. Building 1, where the wind tunnel is located. There's also office and support space in there. A mechanical building that supports the work that happens in this principal structure. There is a yard here, a mechanical yard that's fully screened by walls that match the mechanical building. And then an accessory building that's just also has support of the work that's going on in there. They are connected by some overhead piping that are connecting these buildings as well. Parking for the site would be in this southwest portion here, and this would be how the employees would be entering the building. And I have detailed architectural plans as well as 3D renderings of that primary building as well. So with regards to the site standards, the minimum building area requirement for the B2 zoning district is 10%. In this plan for the first phase, it's 19.8%, so that does meet that standard. And then you can see on that table below that the setbacks that are required by the zoning code are all met by that. So those measurements are from the closest building to the nearest frontage there. The parking, I had said the applicant did provide an expectation of what would be needed on the site. They anticipate 40 spaces needed. They're showing 55 spaces there. Again, it's not likely that the user of the site would ever change or the use itself would ever change. There is additional land for additional parking if needed that the applicant could make use of. With regards to the exterior materials, the buildings shown in this first phase have a maximum height of 70 feet at the exhaust tower and 40 feet elsewhere. These are within the parameters of the applicant's PUD request of 120 feet for structures like the exhaust tower. The standard in the B2 zoning district is 50 feet. So the bulk of the buildings are well within that standard. Now, the mix of materials is of a higher level than what we have seen in other B2 employment district projects. Glass with perforated screening fins will be used around the office areas. Precast concrete with vertical fins and reveals, as well as translucent paneling to create visual interest and to allow light to enter the building in other areas that are not office space. Again, there's a mechanical yard that's fully screened by walls of the same materials as the principal structure. And again, there's 3 primary structures on the site. There's the capability 1 is what's listed here. That's just the main building 1. That's where the work of the site is happening. And then these support buildings here have mechanical equipment inside them, fully enclosed. So this is elevations of that main building 1. You can see this vertical exhaust tower here. There's aluminum curtain wall frame and glazing. These are windows with basically fins to help create some shading so it doesn't cook the occupants in there with all the glass. And then the upper area is a translucent paneling. And then here are precast panels with some, I guess, vertical fins, you could call it, on there. So this is what the 3D rendering looks like. This is be looking kind of from the left-hand side here and the south. You can see this area is that glass enclosed with those vertical fins that have perforations. So lets in a little bit of light while still shading the area inside. And then you can see in the back here, this is what would be kind of the engineering building. That would be collaborative between the U and Northwind. And then to the east, this would be the mechanical building with the yard here enclosed. And then further to the right here would be that other accessory building. And then this is what it would look like at night. You can see the translucent panels glowing in this portion of the building on the top and side here. With regards to the other buildings, this here is the northeast structure, the mechanical building, and then the yard area here with the screening wall with those same kind of vertical reveals on there, precast concrete. And then this is that southern building here with some translucent panels as well. From the road, you wouldn't really be seeing this because of all the trees that are being planted over there, but this is just the view from the east. The campus itself is really focused on that central plaza area, and that's what you would be seeing the glass office space from. And then just another image here of that building. This one is the mechanical building again. With regards to landscaping, the applicant has provided a landscaping plan that does include landscaping around that future substation, as well as landscaping along 151st Street. The trees, based on a ratio of 1 per 3,000 square feet, 129 trees would be required, 178 are provided on there. Within the parking lot, 17% of the parking lot is landscaped, and it has 10 trees. 5 would be required based on the number of stalls. And then 1 tree per 10 linear feet of or 1 foundation planting per 10 linear feet are required, or I should say 1 foot of foundation planting per 10 linear feet of building perimeter. The requirement is 254. They've got 362. There were trees on the site that are removed, 158 inches, or 17% of the total, or based on 17% of the total, 158 would need to be planted, and that's just based on the size of this site in relation to the overall site. As the phasing goes forward, this would still be brought forward and based on each individual phasing area. The applicant does have 142.5 caliper inches as part of this phase to take up some of that total and get ahead of itself, so that we aren't waiting at the end of the project and seeing how many more trees do we have to plant. And then lastly, the perimeter right-of-way trees. 15 trees would be required on a 1 per 50-foot ratio. The applicant has 86 trees here. And this is where that mix of trees really comes into play. This is the heavy coniferous plantings along here for screening and privacy. Within the site is a lot of the deciduous and ornamental trees. And this is just close up on the parking lot and building 1 primary area. You can see foundation plantings around it in the parking lot landscaping and around the entrances. And then this is just showing that mix of trees along the perimeter and the makeup being primarily coniferous. There are some deciduous ones mixed in. They're not all coniferous trees, but that does create that greater than 50% state. New utilities will be installed in 151st Street East, pulled from Blaine Avenue, and those connections will be made to the site from there. The fee in lieu of parkland dedication was already paid with the original subdivision, and on the plans provided by the applicant, sidewalks and trails are shown along those rights of way in accordance with the requirements of the code. As I said, there is a site lighting conversation to continue with the applicant, but all the lighting is shown on 30-foot pole mounts, which is within the maximum allowed by the code. Staff feels confident that the actual number of lumens at the adjacent property boundaries will be much lower than what it is at the subject properties boundaries, but the applicant has requested flexibility in that standard. With regards to the site, this is the first site that the University of Minnesota is selling that does require or did require some environmental remediation. The first 2 parcels sold by the university for Amber Fields and for Meta, those were identified for sale initially because they did not contain any contamination that exceeded the levels for residential development, which is the highest threshold here. Cleanup has already occurred on site, and it was mostly asbestos removal So just so the Planning Commission can see what is going on out there, it may be familiar to some of you, but the yellow dots are areas where contamination was below that residential threshold, and then the red dots are where it exceeded that. So the zoom in inset here, this is kind of the area, and well, not kind of, this is the area that needed remediation, which has already been done. Because this is an interesting use that the city hasn't seen before, a noise analysis of the design was completed and provided as part of the applicant's submittal materials. The analysis of the potential noise is based on the design of the proposed project, and it's using the limits that are set by the MPCA as a basis for its analysis. The project is designed with noise limits that are set by the MPCA for nighttime levels, which are lower than daytime levels. And the analysis does show that the noise generated will fall within the limits well before it reaches residential properties nearby. So just to set a little bit of context here, you can see the MPCA noise rule limits for residential, commercial, and industrial, and we're really just going to focus on the residential because those have the lowest limits. The nighttime limit of 55 for the intermittent, which is like 10% of the time it might be this, 50% of the time it might be this. So this is lower because you don't want a louder noise droning longer. The limits that are proposed by the applicant for the design are 52 and 45 for the continuous and intermittent noise levels. Just to provide a little bit of context on what noise means, we would be mostly considering things between the 40 and 50 or low 50s, which would be a refrigerator or a quiet office, moderate rainfall. A vacuum cleaner is 70 decibels. Just to give a level set on what different levels of noise might be. Also, context about what is the surrounding area. Measured from the property boundary, 3,250 feet to the nearest adjacent residential property. DCTC also falls into that too as a use, and that's also 3,250 feet from this property boundary. But when measuring noise or the anticipated noise levels for the design, we'll be looking at the actual site here. So for that first phase of development, you can see as you get further from the source, the level of noise drops. So if you were 10 feet away from the noise source, it would be pretty loud at 90. But by the time you get to 3,000 feet away, where the nearest house is, you're well below that residential decibel level that maximum that's set by the MPCA. Again, 45 is kind of a quiet office or a refrigerator in your home, and it's below that before it even gets to the nearest home there. So what that means is once it reaches this point, it's within that threshold that's allowed by the MPCA. And conservatively, you could guess that it's much lower as you get further here. With regards to the intermittent noise, which is expected to last up to 4 minutes at a time while testing is occurring, that standard is a little different. Because it's intermittent, it can be a little bit louder, but once you get to 3,000 feet where the nearest house is, it's much lower than what the MPCA allows and much lower than what a rainfall would be. And this is where that threshold is met. So with that, I can take any questions. There are 3 recommended motions before the Planning Commission today. As I said, the applicant is here who can elaborate or respond to any questions the Commission might have that staff is unable to answer.
Thank you, Anthony. I'll start off with a couple questions. The noise is within standards. Do we have a forecast of what the decibel level will be once the additional phases are completed and additive with the Meta facility?
So when you're measuring decibels, you don't just add two things together and get double that. If a vacuum is 80 decibels, if you have two vacuums, you're not getting 160 decibels because that would be like a jet taking off. The standard is to add when you double a source of roughly the same level of noise generation, you add 3 decibels to that. So the applicant's analysis, the report that they submitted, was taking into account the two first phases. So that's where that 52 comes into play here versus 55, because they subtracted 3 from what the limit would be, because it does add that 3 decibels to the noise, or reduces what the limit would be. So with regards to Meta, when they came forward, their noise analysis showed that they would be between 2 and 15 decibels below that MPCA limit. So generally, you're not adding to the impacts by having another source adjacent to it of relatively the same level of noise.
So our forecasts are that it still, with all the build out there, it's going to be within.
Yeah. And the reality is, in Rosemount, especially in that part of the city, most of the noise is coming from County Road 42, just from engines accelerating, trucks slowing down, things like that. There's always a level of background noise in urban environments in that regard.
Now, moving on noise, but big picture, really, and the location for this is somewhat secluded, right? I mean, we're not expecting regular traffic. I mean, Blaine, I think there's a dirt road going south, but it's not a regular thoroughfare for residents, right? So it's really going to have low traffic around this facility.
So at this time, Blaine Avenue is a city road. It will be a county road, and it'll probably be a connection between the two. So there will likely in the future, I couldn't speak to when that would be, but it would have more traffic, but it would be a county road and regulated by the county in that regard.
Okay, great. But there is some heavy landscaping right on Blaine. That's where the heaviest landscaping is.
Correct. That's what the landscape plan shows. And as the future phases come through, I think it would be safe to say that there will be additional landscaping around the perimeter as each phase comes in.
Any other questions from commissioners?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. We showed the maximum distances to the different DCTC and those residential areas. Are there any other potential developments that could get closer to there that could then, start to shrink down that 3250 distance and potentially start to get those decibel levels where they start to creep up?
Right, and that's a good question. Currently, the city's land use plan does show a fair amount of land that's guided for residential development closer. The university has indicated, and I think the applicant could speak to it as well, that they have their own covenants that residential development can't occur within 1,000 feet of these areas. And this is also a really good time to be considering what those land use designations will be as we move into our comp plan update. Because those areas that are closer to it do need remediation, I don't, or staff doesn't foresee any development occurring in that area anytime soon. And if it would still have to meet the U's own internally required buffering between those uses.
Okay. And then I'm curious what the rationale on the condition B, where we're potentially asking for a deviation to allow structures up to 120 feet when the structure is shown to be about 70 feet tall.
I would defer to the applicant on that one.
Okay.
And the reality is they're probably seeking flexibility, so they're not coming back every time to ask for a deviation. Say, oh well, we want a maximum height of 70 feet here, and then the next phase comes through, and they're like, oh, we need an extra, we want it 85 feet for this one because the design is a little different, or we want to test different things in a different way. So I would defer to the applicant on that, but because it's a flexibility issue, I'm assuming that's why, but they can certainly speak to that better than I can.
You know, just real quick, I was thinking about this earlier. Do you know, I'm not sure if this is a good comparison, but Proto Labs has pretty tall stack, which I believe is closer to the 100 feet or so. You happen to know what that is for reference?
I can't remember off the top of my head. I know Acona also has a pretty tall stack that they did to enclose some equipment out there. I don't know what that height is. I would say based on the fact that it's a half a mile from County Road 42, the impacts of the building height are pretty low on the community in general. But it does go back to Commissioner Bugai's point about how close housing could be expected to be within that area. But they would be, limited to whatever gets approved through here, and I would see what the applicant has to say about that.
Good. I did have one other question, and this may be for Director Egger. Right now, water usage is a big issue with the city. We've got some water quality problems we're trying to solve for. You want to speak to the usage of the water and any concerns there?
So I would defer to the applicant on that. They have had conversations with the city as we've gone through the application process, and the level of usage doesn't raise any concerns for the city, but they can certainly speak to the specific numbers that they would expect.
Yeah. Commissioner Ellis?
Yeah, so I had a couple questions. First of all, I know we've got limitations on the lighting and things that are written into the city code. Do we have anything similar with respect to sound, or are we just going off of the MPCA guidelines as our guidelines, but without anything that we have written down for us specifically?
So the MPCA really is the regulatory body for noise. Our code does refer to noise in a nuisance aspect. It uses terms like shrill or causing discomfort or things like that. But when we're getting into the nitty gritty of the level of decibels, that's the MPCA's purview.
Okay. And then we've talked about,
sorry, that isn't to say that we can't, take action and work with the applicants or any other user in the city when things come up. In the mining, sometimes a conveyor belt will start squeaking, and then we, work with them to alleviate that.
Of course. I like it. Thank you. We talked about this being one of several stages and things. I'm just wanting to make sure that I'm understanding what we're approving when we talk about like the height and the fence height and things, because I'm not sure. Are we approving for the whole parcel, the 100 plus
Correct.
foot? Okay, so that's not just with respect to this corner that we're working on now. This would be with respect to the whole thing.
That is correct. Okay. And that's
I didn't understand that at first, but I appreciate that. Thank you.
As I said, it's likely to allow the applicant to avoid having to go through the PUD process. They'll still need a site plan review, but if the site plan meets the standards that you're essentially creating the standards for that site.
We're creating the standards for the whole PUD.
Yep.
And now this is just one. This is just one site within it. I understand.
Yes,
thank you.
Correct. It's similar to what other developments, mostly residential developments that do planned unit developments. They work in phases. Meta had a PUD that was similar to help them design, but they're one single parcel, so it isn't a phasing thing that we were approving things to be built in the future. In future phases. But yes, to answer your question, this would be basically creating the zoning ordinance for this site specifically.
I understand. Thank you.
I had another fence question. So on this one, it looks like the fence goes all the way through like the outlot. Looks like there's like a security building on the left side there, and then connects into the engineering building. Since they're only doing phase one, what is that fence going to look like at phase one?
I would defer to the applicant for confirmation, but my understanding is that they would be installing fence along the entire site to begin, or around here and not up over the engineering building. But the applicant can certainly answer that question. But it would be going at least around the bulk of the lower part of the site.
Question? Okay. Any other questions? All right, so this is a public hearing, and so we'll open that up. I'd like to invite the applicant up first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioner. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Justin Pearson, the Director of Programs at Northwind Test. We are a small company located in St. Paul. We've been around for quite a while, about 70 years, but we have just now started to kind of revamp the company to take on programs like this with pretty significant impact to the community and to the country. So I heard a bunch of questions. That's very good that we get to answer those. We've been making wind tunnels for a very long time, and we have a significant amount of experience in doing so. This particular site for us, it represents a very large opportunity for not only our company, but also for the community. At the end of our production, with all of the phases complete, we expect to be hiring close to 200 people in pretty high capacity jobs in a high technology area. In addition to that, during the construction, we anticipate anywhere from 3,000 plus trade workers on site and during the construction of the facility. So it's a very significant opportunity for us, for the community. We're excited to be able to do that with us. To answer some of the questions that I heard as far as height, that's a big issue that we are operationally managing during our design process. The phase at which we are in during the different capabilities and designing out what their actual operational tempo looks like allows us with this deviation to incorporate as many energy saving and other technologies to reclaim some of the lost heat and some of the lost energy that is developed during our testing processes. The design guidelines just will allow us to be able to incorporate those without, as was mentioned, without coming back for additional questions. On a lighting and fencing side, that's primarily driven by security requirements. The nature of the testing we're doing here is commercial and government testing, both on site. And so the development of future flight articles with our commercial partners and with the government is of a highly sensitive nature. And so the security requirements that are flowed down to us by that are dictating the type of fencing as well as the type of lighting that we have to use in doing that. We anticipate that we have the ability to work with our customer in developing the right solution for that. You saw an example of a proposed security fence solution there that makes the site attractive. We are making deliberate design decisions throughout this design process in order to make this not a boring government pole barn site, but more of a high technology center. Our partnership with University of Minnesota allows us to really bring in the science and research side of this with a significant impact to the University of Minnesota and keeping our engineers here in Minnesota rather than having them move to California, which is where they're all going to work with Boeing and Lockheed right now. And so ideally, as we are bringing these capabilities in, we're building that community base with pulling the people from DCTC over to operate the tunnels from University of Minnesota down to design the products that go into the tunnels. So that's kind of the whole idea behind the site is to enhance the capabilities here in Rosemount. On the height and on the water usage, we anticipate at our peak usage about 35,000 gallons a day. That is very similar to the best example that I could think of was a small microbrewery. And so it's kind of the same level of water usage. That's in the entire site of this first capability. We anticipate less water in the next phase in that capability too. So overall usage we anticipate to be less than 70,000 gallons a day, which is on par with again a microbrewery or a very small irrigation field. Irrigation between 10 and 20 acres is about the same as that. So any other additional questions?
Yeah, a couple. Just because I know people are curious, this is all scale model testing, correct?
That's correct. So the capabilities that we have here will not be full scale testing.
Okay. And then the noise is going to come from primarily like the wind tunnel and the mechanics that create the wind resistance?
Yeah, the speeds at which we operate are pretty high, and so there's a lot of energy, and energy is dissipated with heat and noise. That's where the noise is coming from. It's from the expulsion of air.
And the water usage is for cooling systems, or what is that?
It's processing. So it's during the process of heating the tunnels, getting the right air and environmental conditions.
Okay. And then there was another question that came up actually, and it was written comments about vibration. We talked about noise. Is there any concern about vibration?
We did a preliminary vibration analysis to see if there was a concern. Right now we have covenants, as was mentioned. There's covenants that restrict our property as well as the Meta property just to the north of us that prevent any kind of residential building within 1,000 feet of our line. Those covenants actually apply to the noise and vibration restrictions that we have with the Meta facility as well. We did a preliminary analysis on vibration and the vibration requirements for the Meta facility. It would equate to about a 7.5 to 8 scale earthquake on the Richter scale. And so we're well below that. We don't anticipate any kind of major vibration from our facilities.
Okay. Other questions from commissioners?
I have one.
Yeah.
I think the water usage is a good topic, and you addressed that. Thank you. I think a lot of the concern that people have, even when Meta came, was the source of energy, because obviously wind tunnels, like you mentioned, take a lot of energy. Is it my assumption that you will have your own energy source through those XL transformers, and that it will not be anything that the residents around the surrounding area will have to worry about with extra utility bills increasing? And so is that something that is going to power the facility?
That's the anticipation right now. We're building a substation with XL just in that northeastern corner of the property, specifically for these capabilities, and so they'll all be powered through that substation versus any other public infrastructure.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Just to clarify, so the funding for that is coming from Excel and from Northwind?
We actually have two sources of funding for the program. This is a major program for the state as well as for everybody in this room. We have a funding source that's put out by the Department of Economic Development through the state. About $50 million has been granted to Northwind in a forgivable loan. That is incumbent on us not only providing a capability on site, but also providing a certain level of employment on site. And so as we are hiring people and developing the industry at that location specifically, and then that loan can be forgiven. Right now, that funding is split into a number of different buckets for us to be able to build the facility out. A portion of that money right now is allocated directly to paying for the substation. So it's less of a partnership with Excel and more of a partnership with the state.
Thank you.
Have you performed any R&D around like how much energy will be usage wise with Excel, like how much they have to be responsible for producing energy for your plant versus what they're doing today for the residential in the surrounding areas?
Yeah, so the substation itself will be capable of powering all of the tunnels independently. And so that energy usage is depending on how often we run and how many tunnels are running at a time. We anticipate that to be less than 100 megawatts. But that will all be provided by the substation.
Thank you.
Can you speak more on the security side of things on the fence, where like in phase one that's going to surround?
Sure. We're looking right now at building the fence around the entire site. It's more cost effective for us to put that because that it's pretty expensive to put that fencing in. During the initial construction phase, there will be a construction fence around the site. As the phase one is completed, we'll complete that fence out to be the final fencing. So the entire site would be fenced with the exception of potentially where the engineering building is located on the model above. That engineering building has yet to be final design, and so there may be some changes to where the fence is located there, but we anticipate the security fence will encompass the entire site.
And then will there be like a gated access and like it says like security building?
Mhm.
Is that in part of phase 1 as well, or is that?
There's two primary access points. That was part of phase 1. The security building is the first phase. That point of access will be the primary security checkpoint for the initial capability in building 1. As we anticipate that building 1 and the surrounding buildings are completed, the engineering building is coming online shortly thereafter or in line with that, which will be the primary security access point.
Okay.
What is your anticipated timing for an engineering building?
We're expecting the engineering building within the next 4 years.
Other questions from the commissioners? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions from the audience? Please come on up. State your name and address, please.
My name is Kathy Pritchard. I live at 15703 Crystal Path in Rosemount. And the reason why I'm here is I just wanted to reach out to the commissioners to the one thing when I was reading through the plan that I was a little confused about is the variances when they say like the site lighting, for instance, that it might go over the LUMA for the zoning and they want you to be flexible. I didn't see any reasons why they would need it higher. So I just want you to ask questions about the flexibility. So that's if they have a reason, I think the plan is actually beautiful, beautiful plan. I just would like to have reasons why, because if the reason made sense to have higher LUMAs, in the lighting or higher building, if it made sense for the development, I'd be all for that, but they don't say. And so that's what I'm not understanding. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the audience? Does the applicant wish to address the height or the LUMA questions? Yeah.
Absolutely. So Justin Pierce again with Northwind. It's a great question. It's a question that we are continuing to investigate. The reason that we're asking for flexibility there is we don't have the official flow downs from the U.S. government yet on the requirements for that lighting. We anticipate it to be similar to other facilities of this type and kind, which would be slightly above the requirement. But the reason for the lighting is for security purposes. It's not for operational purposes other than to ensure that we have visibility around the facility and that we can maintain a constant view of access to any of the exterior portions of the facility.
Thank you. And the building height, the variance for the height, want to describe it, talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So we have right now in the first building, we're well within the limits. As was mentioned, we're below that 75-foot requirement. There's other potential capabilities on the site in the mechanical equipment where we have air storage that may be higher than that. The design process right now hasn't fully developed that. And then in the building 2 and the capability 2, when we're looking at the additional future opportunities that we have, one of the primary design criteria that we have is to incorporate as much of the energy saving and green initiatives as we can. In order to do that, and also in order to mitigate some of the concerns that we feel that we've already mitigated through the sound studies that we've done, is to incorporate additional baffling and other types of mitigation techniques for sound and vibration, as was already mentioned. And that may require us to be higher. We don't anticipate it right now, but it may require us to be higher. And so it's just to ensure that we're good neighbors as much as we can be.
Thank you.
I have a follow-up question on that. So with the canopy of trees that was going to surround, I think, on the east side, outside the fence, would that impact the amount of light that bleeds through?
That's the idea, is that we're mitigating any light bleed with the foliage, and we're also ensuring that we have as pleasant to look at a facility as we can. And so the lighting right now is anticipated to be on the interior of the fence rather than the exterior, but we would likely need to have the fence in an illuminated position.
Okay.
Any final questions from commissioners? Okay, and any more input from the audience? All right, then I'm going to make a motion to close the public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Reed, seconded by Commissioner Ellis. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, public hearing is closed. Any final questions from commissioners?
So I'd like staff to address when we talk about being flexible, how we can be flexible in what we're approving. So if we're thinking about the lighting and specifically, like, is this a situation where we can, we come up with something that we're comfortable with and that staff is comfortable with, and then when the government comes back and says we need more lighting, we would just have to change that? Is that kind of what we would be with flexible? Is that
Right.
yeah? How would that work?
I mean, flexible doesn't really work in a zoning ordinance. So you could increase that level to, say, a maximum of 2 lumen at the property line of the property. There is a process for approving amendments to planned unit developments that do allow for, deviations to be changed and things like that. It goes to the city council, but it's not something that the planning commission doesn't learn about or hear. I think a few of you have been on the commission long enough to understand the major amendments to a PUD versus a minor amendment to allow for some deviations. So with that being said, I think approving the light plan as provided as part of the PUD, it does show a maximum lumen level at the property line of 1.6 or 1.9. So I think just approving the final site and building plan does kind of set at least the plans that have been presented as what can be built.
Thank you.
Just have some comments.
Go ahead.
Okay. When I first read it, I was reading, all the deviations, and I'm like, that's a lot, 6 deviations. But as Anthony has gone through them, which it did a great job of explaining all the reasons for the deviations, security reasons, and the location and everything that involved with the building, the parking, the fencing, the trees, the lighting, the architectural. It all made sense. And I have been supportive of this project since inception, when it first was brought to us quite some time ago. So I'm excited about it. I think it brings Rosemount to the map. And the fact that he answered my question. I was like, how many jobs are we going to bring to Rosemount? Professional jobs too. These aren't just, basically jobs that pay minimum wage. They're professional jobs. These young folks go to school for engineering, and I'm excited to offer something for them to stay in the community. All these, like you said, they go to California, they go to Lockheed, they go to Boeing, they move out of state. My son moved out of state to go to Raytheon in Tucson, but now he's back home. So I'm excited about this project. And again, it brings people here instead of living here and moving or driving somewhere else to go to work. They're actually going to live here and work here too in this community. So that's exciting. And I'm very excited for this to come to Rosemount. And I will try to limit my vacuuming to before 10 o'clock for the 70 decibels now.
Or don't use 2 at once.
So I am for this project.
Thank you, Commissioner Rivera. Any other comments? I well said. I'm really excited about this. I think it's going to be a great addition to the city. Very exciting plan. So with that, I guess I'll entertain a motion. Somebody like to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion on the first motion to recommend the city council approve Northwind addition preliminary and final plats subject to conditions or requirements of the city engineer.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Buji, seconded by Commissioner Arnob. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it passes. Next motion?
I'll just keep going.
Yeah.
Motion to recommend the city council approve a plan unit development master development plan with rezoning of the site from B2 employment to B2 PUD employment plan unit development for an aerospace research and testing laboratory on approximately 60.5 60 acres, half-mile south of County Road 42 and west of Blaine Avenue, subject to conditions A through G.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Bougie, second by Commissioner Ellis. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Next one.
All right, motion to approve the final site and building plan for the first phase of Northwind Tests Minnesota Aerospace Complex, subject to conditions A through F.
And a second.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Bougie, second by Commissioner Rivera. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nay? No, no. Anyone opposed? All right. Unanimous approval. Motion passes. Thank you very much. All right. Very excited. All right. So next up, we have the request submitted by City of Rosemount and CNH Architects for site plan review approval for the remodeling of and construction of additions to the existing Fire Station 2.
All right, so a little project summary of what's being requested tonight. So the Planning Commission is being asked to consider a request initiated by the City of Rosemount for a site plan review approval to remodel and also construct additions onto Fire Station 2. The existing facility no longer meets the operational needs of the Rosemount Fire Department, prompting the need for the proposed improvements. The remodeled and expanded fire station will include firefighter offices, meeting space for the department operations, an indoor fitness area, dormitory and quiet rooms for staff, and city staff is recommending approval of the site plan review subject to the conditions outlined in the recommended action within the staff report. A little overview of the site location. So you can see that Fire Station 2 is located off of Connemara Trail and Azalea Avenue. It's about 6.43 acres in size. You can see that the Fire Station 2 is located on the southern portion of the site, and there is an existing water tower and well house on the northern portion of the site, and then also located west of Meadows Park. So a review of the site plan. So the existing fire station and associated parking areas are located on the southern portion of the outline site that I just showed you off of Connemara Trail. The northern portion of the site contains the water tower and is directly west of Meadows Park. The surrounding property to the north, south, and west are developed residential uses, which you can see those residential uses around the existing site. The proposed site plan includes additions to the east side and west sides, and then also the southern portion on the east side as well of the existing fire station. The proposed improvements do comply with the setback requirements of the R1 zoning district, which this property is located within that R1 zoning district. The proposed eastern addition also includes office space, dorms, laundry room, quiet room, restroom facilities, and the western portion of the existing site houses more equipment storage, lockers, workrooms, gear wash area, and other operational support spaces. And then the southern area also will be expanding to be able to have more space for the fire trucks in that area, and as well as the additional garage area expanded in that southern part. A little overview of the parking and access on the site. So the site is accessed both from Azalea Avenue and also Connemara Trail. Azalea Avenue runs along the eastern portion of the boundary and is the main access to the site. Also gives access to the water tower on the northern part of the site, and then also gives access to the Meadows Park to the east. Azalea Avenue does serve the two parking areas on site, which you can see is directly north of the station as one of those parking areas, and then the other parking area is directly east of the existing building as well. Those parking areas are to remain unchanged, and no additional parking is proposed with this addition. Access from Connemara is primarily intended for that fire access to the stations and garage areas where the fire trucks will be housed. That area is to be expanded to also accommodate those expansion onto the garage area. The site does currently provide 49 parking stalls. Based on the total gross floor area, though, the fire station and the proposed additions, there would be 74 parking stalls required on site with the ratio that is outlined within the city code. But because of significant portion of the building consisting of fire truck storage areas and apparatus space, staff did request that the building occupable floor area be calculated to determine the parking staff requirement or parking stall requirement, and that came out to be about 40 parking stalls, which the site is providing 49 parking stalls, so staff does see that as sufficient with what area is being used throughout the existing building. A little overview on landscaping. So the applicant did submit a landscape plan identifying the different locations of existing trees, trees that need to be removed, and then also propose new tree plantings as well. Also identifying different locations and new foundation plantings around the existing building and parking area, and then also some stormwater basin seeding, and then also lawn restoration areas throughout the plan as well. The landscape plan does show about 14 existing trees will be removed. 7 of the trees are located on city-owned property directly east, which you can see adjacent to Azalea Avenue. This is to accommodate stormwater improvements in that area. The remaining trees removed are primarily located in the southern portion for that garage and concrete expansion. The plans do show to preserve 10 of the existing trees on site, and they are also going to be planting 11 new trees throughout the site as well. You can see foundation plantings will be proposed along the western addition on the western side of the site, and as well as along the northern and southern portion of the east expansion, and then also along the eastern parking area as well. Photometric plan was also submitted by the applicant. The site does currently have existing wall-mounted and pole-mounted lighting, which many of those will remain, and then there will be additional lighting proposed on the additions, and then also the southern portion of the site with that accommodating garage expansion. And the photometric plan did demonstrate the proposed levels complying with the standards of the city code. A little overview of the architectural elevations, so that existing fire station and construction, a combination of brick and then also CMUs and then cast stone accent bands. The proposed remodel and building additions will also retain these existing materials, and then also will be incorporating additional exterior finishes, which will include pre-finished composite wall panels, aluminum storage, our storefront glazing system, and then also screening, aluminum screening on top to help with screening of mechanical equipment on the roof. The fire station is primarily a one-story building with a small mezzanine that will provides access to the roof, and it does meet that maximum height requirement. It is about 25 feet in height, and that max within the R1 zoning district is 35 feet. So it is meeting that standard. Staff also does find the exterior finishes do comply with architectural material requirements that are outlined within the city code as well. Here's an overview of the floor plan as well. You can see that western expansion will house more of those operational additions that will be needed by the Rosemount Fire Department. And this eastern portion will hold more for dormitories, quiet rooms, additional full-time fire staff office space, lunchroom, just additions that will be needed with the expansion of the Rosemount Fire Department. And then there is one motion in front of the Planning Commission today, which is to approve the site plan review for the remodeling of and construction of additions to the existing Fire Station 2, which is located at 13581 Azalea Avenue, subject to conditions A through C. I can take any questions that the commission may have, and I do know that a representative with the Rosemount Fire Department's here, and as well as the consultant as well.
Thank you, Julia. Any questions from commissioners?
I just have one question. So this is a remodel of Station 2.
Yes.
I know we have Station 1. I think a lot of people are interested as we build further east. Is there going to be a Station 3? And at what threshold do we have for population or time of response that we would need a Station 3?
I think I'll let our fire chief, Kip Springer, speak on that as he is in the audience, and I'm sure he would love to elaborate on that as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
No.
All right, so this is a public hearing. We'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. Kip, if you'd like to step up, please. I think most of us know you, but it'd be good to kind of say who you are.
Yeah, my name is Kip Springer, and I'm the fire chief here for Rosemount Fire. Yeah, to answer your question specifically, we did a staffing study earlier this year just to kind of identify, as we continue to grow as a department, what our needs would be. A couple of those first steps included some additional full-time staff, remodeling of a fire station just to begin our 24/7 staff model. Some future steps will include remodeling Station 1, and then there was a metric built into the system that talked about population growth to the east, and at a certain point in time to build a third fire station, kind of tied mostly around population growth and density, but also then would help with the response times. But by just staffing this station alone really decreases our response times, moving more to a staff station as opposed to that traditional paid-on-call style where, pager would go off, you would leave home or work, come to the station to go to the call. Now we'll actually have firefighters housed at the station when the call comes out. So that'll save us several minutes of time.
Okay, that was my next question. I know we do have some full-time staff, obviously, at the fire stations. And then is Rosemount still considered somewhat volunteer at this point and will become, I know some surrounding communities and suburbs have already started going to that full-time staffing model.
So we would be considered a combination style department. So the moment you add even one full-time fire employee, you become a combination style. So today we have 3 full-time staff. We have myself, a deputy fire marshal, and an administrative specialist who also serves as a firefighter. We do have a request in for a SAFER grant to try and bring on 9 additional full-time staff, which would give us 3 people on shift every day. That just kind of runs that ABC shift, and then we would still fill open spots in that 4th spot on the truck with our paid-on-call staff. So our intention is to remain a combination style department, never really transitioning to an all-career.
Okay. One last question,
Yes.
kind of a personal one. Of course, we see on the news that all of the advantages to having the saunas on the fire stations. Is that something that you would implement like in one of the rooms?
As we're looking to build out that fitness area, saunas, cold plunges, things like that are all in consideration, yes. But that is a trending item that seems to have some good benefits.
It's great to hear.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, Brett, is there any expectation that the build out, the reconstruction would be any disruption to the operation of Fire Station 2 there?
Nope, that's a good question. Part of this plan includes that station remaining operational. It will certainly be downsized a little bit, so we'll still have, a couple of trucks in space for firefighters to respond to. But, the full-time staff who work out of there now will be relocated during the remodel. Some of the apparatus will shift around and some of the equipment will move during the remodel, but it will remain an operational station.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, Kip.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions from the audience? All right, then I'm going to make a motion to close the public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Reed, second by Commissioner Bougie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, public hearing is closed. Any final comments? Would somebody like to make a motion?
I can make a motion. I'll approve the motion to approve the site plan review for the remodeling of and construction of additions to the existing fire station number 2 located at 13581 Azalea Avenue, subject to conditions A through C.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, moved by Commissioner Biedner, seconded by Commissioner Bougie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. And that is the end of our public hearings today. Do we have any new business?
Mr. Chair, there's no new business tonight.
Thank you. Discussion items?
There are no discussion items.
All right. Then I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.